Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Infirmary here at Campfire Endurance Coaching. And today we are going to be talking about something called fatigue resistance, which has been in endurance racing and training for decades, but it is kind of experiencing a little bit of a moment recently. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today: why you need it to be an endurance athlete in the first place, how to evaluate your fatigue resistance at the moment, and of course, as I'm sure a lot of you are here for, how to improve it and how to make it better. First of all, I would really like to thank Analyst 2019 Pro for the comment about my hair in the last video that I look like a 1990s troll doll. That's awesome. Very, very happy to be looking that way. I grew up with those dolls, very near and dear to my heart. So, Analyst 2019 Pro, thank you for watching. Okay, so what is fatigue resistance? It's been around forever, but it has recently been getting more attention. Some people are trying to develop fancy metrics or terms or things like that. Somebody is calling it durability, whatever. The concept is really simple. An athlete who is fatigue resistant is an athlete that doesn't see their abilities fade very much despite putting in a large amount of work. A really clear example is a Tour de France cyclist who, despite doing weeks of incredibly difficult and grueling, long 150-mile stages in the Alps, in the heat, in the wind, is still able in those final stages in the last week to sprint for a win or climb effectively or time trial effectively. So it's somebody who the work that they've done beforehand doesn't change them much from their fresh state. In an example that's probably a lot more pertinent to you all, a fatigue resistant triathlete or an Ironman athlete is somebody who can run pretty close to their fresh marathon even after swimming 2.4 miles and then riding for 112 miles. That's a really big effort. So if you're somebody who can, I don't know, run a 320 marathon fresh, and then in an Ironman do something like run a 330, you're only losing 10 minutes, you're a very fatigue resistant athlete. So it is going to be a real crucial aspect of any endurance athlete's game. Most of the important stuff in a race happens in the end of a race, in the last, in an Ironman, usually in the last 10 miles or so. So if you're not fatigue resistant and you are beginning to struggle at the end of a race, you're not going to be able to get the kind of results that you're looking for if, say, you are trying to qualify for Kona, which I know a lot of you are interested in doing. So there's a few red herrings. You might be unfit, you might not be fatigue resistant, or you might have just made some bad decisions. If you're not fueling properly, if you're not drinking, if you're not staying hydrated, if you're not putting carbohydrates in your body during your event, no amount of training or fatigue resistance is actually going to make you better, because that lack of fuel or hydration is going to block the fatigue resistance that you've worked so hard for. So please don't screw up your nutrition. It's so easy. Like, practice it all the time. Go to the race, just execute it. Let's stop talking about this. The other thing that can get in your way is poor pacing. If you pace any part of your race poorly by doing too much work ahead of time, you're also going to squander the fatigue resistance that you've worked so hard to develop. So make sure you stick to a conservative pacing plan that allows you to increase your effort as you go through your day. You're going to see why in just a minute. And the workout we're going to talk to you about today actually builds upon that very example. Okay, so how do you evaluate it? Fatigue resistance is important for every endurance activity: swimming, cycling, running, cross-country skiing, rowing, anything, you name it. We're mostly a triathlon coaching company, and a lot of you are interested in being fatigue resistant in your Ironman marathon. So we're kind of going to talk about that quite a bit. Ironically, we're not going to talk about fatigue resistance on the run. We're going to talk about fatigue resistance on the bike. Why? Okay. Maybe some of you saw the video from a couple of weeks ago where we talked about why it takes so long to get ready for an Ironman where you're going to try to qualify for Kona. Well, from that video, you'll remember that triathlon is an energy cascade. Every leg of the race takes something out of you. A fatigue resistant athlete doesn't lose much in the swim or the bike and then is able to run to their ability. Why do we not talk about fatigue resistance in the marathon? Really, all you're trying to do in an Ironman marathon is run an okay marathon, probably one that is way slower than you would be able to run fresh. But that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to go fast. We're trying to slow down as little as possible. And really, the thing that's going to determine how much you slow down on the run is how much the bike takes out of you. Yeah, the swim takes something out of you too, but if you train effectively for that, you're probably going to be okay. We can get into the nitty gritty about the swim later, but today we're really going to talk about the bike. Okay, so how are we going to evaluate your fatigue resistance? First of all, you're going to love this one. I need a fresh best 60-minute power. Oh my God, you're all saying, no way am I going to do that. Yeah, you can do it. Just go do an Olympic distance triathlon. For most of you, the bike leg is going to take over an hour and you're going to ride it pretty darn hard. Or you can sign up for a 40K time trial. Some of you who are really good on the bike, you might need a slightly longer time trial, like 45 kilometers, or sign up for a long time trial in Zwift. But anyway, all we really need you to do is go out and ride as hard as you can for 1 hour. Try to figure out some way to make it fun. And don't complain to me or come back here and say you want to do it in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Just go do it. You're going to learn a lot about yourself and your abilities. Okay, so you do that. Now you have a fresh 60-minute power number that you can brag about to your friends. Awesome. Now, starting maybe 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 14 weeks out from your Ironman, here's the workout you're going to do. And we prescribe this workout to Campfire athletes all the time. First, we want you to go out and burn through about 2,500 kilojoules. Kilojoules are a measure of work. And if you have a power meter, you're recording the kilojoules that you burn every time you go on a ride. I really encourage you to learn about kilojoules because it's a great way to measure the work you're doing in any workout. It's way better than normalized power, let me tell you that, or TSS or any other arbitrary semi-made up metric that exists in the cycling world. So you're going to go out and you're going to burn through 2,500 kilojoules. You can do this any way you want. You can go ride super easy for like 7 or 8 hours, but the easiest way to get to 2,500 kilojoules, if you're kind of a normally sized person, and that's like, for an endurance athlete, we're talking anywhere from like 125, 130 pounds up to a little bit over 200 pounds. If you are a tiny person, where I just said 2,500 kilojoules, shrink it to 2,000. Just because kilojoules are somewhat a function of the power that you are creating. And if you have a tiny mass, you're just going to create less power and burn through fewer kilojoules. So you can go with 2,000. Okay, digression aside. The rest of you, go out, burn through 2,500 kilojoules, probably by going about 4 hours at 60 to 65% of FTP. Your mileage may vary, but you probably have a kilojoules counter right on your bike computer. So just ride until you see 2,500 kilojoules on your bike computer. Then I want you to ride as hard as you can for an hour. Oh my God, you're saying this guy is crazy. It's actually going to be a little easier than you think because you're not going to be able to ride as hard as you did when you did it fresh. And you probably are going to be surprised by the result if you've been training effectively. It's probably going to be better than you think. So let's give you an example. So let's talk about Broseph. Broseph is Campfire Endurance Coaching good athlete compared to his kind of evil twin, Broheim, who screws up all the time. Broheim is too aggressive, doesn't train hard enough, paces poorly, doesn't fuel. He's generally my evil twin. So Broseph, though, goes out and in his fresh 60-minute time trial, he was able to do 300 watts. Just nice, round, easy number. In his fatigue resistance workout, where he's gone and ridden for 4 hours to accrue 2,500 kilojoules, and then ridden as hard as he can for an hour, Broseph manages 272 watts in that second 60-minute test. Now we're just going to get the percentage drop from fresh to tired. So just subtract the tired from the fresh. In this case, subtract 272 from 300. You're going to end up with 28. Divide 28 by 300. We're getting some like real hardcore, like 5th grade math here. And multiply by 100 to get your percentage drop. If it's under 10%, like Broseff's drop is like 9.3%, you're in a really good spot. You are probably as fatigue resistant as you're going to need to be for the race, but keep working on it. Keep developing it. This should be something that you work on all the time. If you're between 10 to 20%, you're in a good spot, but you're going to need more. We really want that number to be under 10% as we're getting towards our big goal race. If it is more than 20% that you are losing from your fresh 60 minutes to your tired 60 minutes, you are not ready to do an Ironman. You need to do all of the things that we're going to talk about in the next step more. So you've figured out what your fatigue resistance drop is, and you know that you're in the excellent, good, or need some work category. Regardless of what category you're in, how do you improve this? Okay, first of all, just ride more. I don't care at what intensity. Look at how much you rode in terms of time last month and try to do a little bit more this month. As long as you are continuously adding a little bit more volume to your training over the course of a block or a season or several seasons, you're going to continue to develop fitness. Now, the other thing you can do is you can extend your long ride. So maybe your long ride was 4 hours. Next week, make it 410, 415. The week after that, 420. Remember, you are going to have recovery weeks every now and then where you unload your body. That is very important for you to remember and for you to keep doing. But, if you say build your long ride by 3 or 4 weeks and then take a recovery week or recovery few days to get your head straight, then keep going again. You can just add 10 to 15 minutes to your long ride whenever you're in loading periods, and that's going to help your fatigue resistance. So we've both ridden more on a weekly basis. We've ridden more on our long ride. Now, we also want you to ride more during your interval workouts. Way too often, we see athletes just doing the same intervals over and over again, like there's something magic about 2x20 at FTP. There isn't. If you just keep doing the same work, you're just going to keep getting the same results. That's the nature of endurance work. You need to do a little more work. So you can do more work by going harder or going longer. There's a few times in the year where you might want to go harder, but most of the year you want to go longer. So this is for tempo intervals, sweet spot intervals, threshold intervals, probably not for VO2 max intervals, though we're going to see a similar progression for VO2 max. We'll get into that later or another video. But for those lower intensity intervals, maybe your Ironman paced intervals, your tempo intervals, sweet spot, threshold, maybe start at around 20 total minutes in your workouts. So that's like 4x5 or 3x7 or 2x10. And then begin extending it over the course of your training block or the period that you're focusing on this kind of work. Extend it out to, I'm not crazy here, something like 6x20 minutes. 6x20 is pretty epic, And if you're an athlete that can do 6 by 20 minutes of threshold work, you're probably a professional. You're a professional something. You're a professional speed skater. You're a professional cross country skier, professional cyclist. I don't know. But even an amateur athlete can work up to 6 by 20 minutes at sweet spot, which is just a very small drop off from threshold. So that's a big jump, right? Going from 20 minutes up to 2 hours. This should take months to develop this. So if you're doing this kind of work, you're increasing your riding volume month to month, you're lengthening out your long ride week to week, you're extending the time in zone that you're spending in your cycling intervals, you are going to see your fatigue resistance improve. Now, sadly, the only real way to test it is to do that big workout that we just talked about. Get up to 2,500 kilojoules and then ride as hard as you can for an hour. But here's the magic. That is a great workout to develop your fatigue resistance, to develop your aerobic conditioning. That's a really good session because we always want to leave ourselves room to finish hard when we're training. Because if we can do that, we're going to train ourselves to finish strong when we're racing. And that's when things really count. Okay. I hope you've enjoyed this today. This is really fun for me to record. If you have any questions, please just go ahead and ask them in the down belows. And you can also get in touch with us. You can email me at chris@campfireendurance.com. And you can find us on the website at campfireendurance.com. So I hope this was really helpful. I hope you had some fun. And yeah, let me know how your 60-minute time trials go. Bye, everybody.